We've all been there, right? You're staring at this massive list of facts for your general awareness exam, just wondering, how on earth am I supposed to make all of this stick? Well, today, we're going to crack that code. Forget just memorizing. We're going to build a web of knowledge, connecting ideas so they actually make sense. So, let's get right into it. You know that feeling? You open up the general awareness syllabus, and your heart just sinks. You're thinking, how am I ever going to memorize all of this? Trust me, you are not alone. It feels like this huge ocean of information, and it's so easy to feel like you're just drowning in a bunch of random, disconnected facts. But what if I told you there's a better way? A smarter way? Instead of just trying to cram everything into your brain, what if we focused on understanding the concepts behind the questions? That's what this whole session is about. It's about making a shift to a smarter way of studying, where every little fact connects to a bigger, much more memorable idea. All right, so here's our game plan for today. We're going to start with some everyday science, the kind that's hidden in plain sight. Then, we'll take a quick tour of our own bodies. After that, we're diving into India's incredible cultural canvas. And to wrap it all up, we'll see how we can connect all these different dots. Okay, first up, everyday science explained. You know, you might not even realize it, but physics and chemistry are happening literally all around you, all the time. Think about the salt you put in your food, or even just a ball falling from your hand. It's everywhere. So let's uncover some of that hidden science. So let's kick things off with a term I'm sure you've heard in science class, a heterogeneous mixture. But what does that actually mean? It might seem like a really simple definition, but trust me, it's a key concept that kind of opens the door to understanding a whole lot more about chemistry. And the definition is, well, surprisingly simple. A heterogeneous mixture is just a mix where you can literally see the different parts. The perfect example is a salad, right? You can see the lettuce, the tomatoes, the cucumbers. They're all mixed up, sure, but they haven't blended into one new thing. Or, think about oil and water. They just never truly mix. So here's your big exam tip. The key takeaway: if you can see the different parts with your own eyes, it's heterogeneous. That's it. It's really that simple. Okay, so that's a mixture where you can see the parts. But what about when you can't? What's happening on a molecular level? I mean, we all know salt dissolves in water, but have you ever really stopped to think about why? Let's take a closer look. Okay, picture this. Imagine water molecules are like a big jar full of marbles. You can see all those little gaps and spaces in between them, right? Well, when you add salt, the tiny salt ions are small enough to sneak right into those empty spaces. They don't just disappear, they're just finding a cozy new home right there between the water particles. All right, let's jump from chemistry over to physics with a super classic example, a falling ball. This is all about the transfer of energy. So when an object is held up high, it's just packed with what we call potential energy. As it starts to fall, that potential energy gets converted into kinetic energy. That's the energy of motion. And by the time it hits the ground, it's all kinetic. But here's the really cool part, the key thing to remember. The total amount of energy at any point in that fall, it stays exactly the same. That, my friends, is the law of conservation of energy in action. All right, so we've gone from the laws of the universe to the laws that govern, well, us. Let's move on to our second section, a tour of our body. Time to decode some of those interesting biological facts. So here we've got a really precise scientific definition of epilepsy. The keywords you really want to lock onto here are chronic, which just means it's a long-term thing, and recurrent seizures. What's super important to understand is that the cause isn't something external. It's an issue with abnormal electrical activity happening right inside the brain. Now this is a classic exam question. They love to do this. They'll give you a scientific name like ascorbic acid just to see if you know what it's commonly called. And yeah, you guessed it, it's just plain old vitamin C. And its deficiency is famous for causing scurvy. You know, that disease you always hear about sailors getting on long voyages. Think of our immune system like a really complex army. The immunoglobulins, they're the soldiers. To keep it simple, think of IgM as the first wave of troops that gets sent out to fight a new infection. IgD, on the other hand, is more like a scout, kind of sitting on B cells just waiting to spot invaders. Now, the exam question also brings up IgG, but it gets its job wrong, which is why only those first two statements are actually correct. It really is all about knowing the different roles these guys play. Okay, so before I give you the answer to our next question, let me ask you something. When you hear the term connective tissue, what pops into your head? For most of us, it's probably something solid, right? Like bones or ligaments. Well, get ready for a surprise. blood is actually considered a type of connective tissue. I know, it sounds a little strange because it's a liquid, but think about it. Its job is to connect our entire body. It transports everything, oxygen, nutrients, waste products, you name it. It literally links all of our organ systems together. That is a fantastic fact to have in your back pocket for an exam.
Okay, let's shift gears now, moving away from science and into culture. Welcome to Section 3, India's Cultural Canvas. The source material had some absolutely fantastic questions about the rich heritage of the subcontinent.
Let's do a quick comparison of two major architectural styles that you'll definitely see questions on. So, on one hand, you've got Indo-Islamic architecture. Think of monuments like the Qutub Minar, with its famous arches, domes, and minarets. Then, on the other hand, you have the Dravida style, which you see in South Indian temples. These are defined by their square base and that amazing, towering, pyramid-like structure called a vimana. When you see them side by side like this, the differences become crystal clear, don't they? This little table is super helpful for quickly clarifying three different cultural terms. First, it's really crucial to know that Muharram is a solemn period of mourning. It is not a festival. Next, we learn that Laylat al-Qadr is the sacred night of power in Islam. And finally, a Vayard is a type of heroic folk narrative, specifically a Punjabi ballad style. It's just a great example of how culture, religion, and art are all beautifully intertwined.
And all of that brings us to our final, and honestly, most important section, connecting the dots. Because, the real goal here isn't just to get the answers right. It's to understand the method behind it all.
So this is the real secret, okay? It's about shifting your mindset. Stop just asking, what's the answer? And start asking, why is that the answer? Think about it. We saw how understanding something like energy conservation in physics helps us make sense of the world. We learned our own bodies are connected by a liquid tissue. And we saw how history and culture have shaped the very buildings we see around us. Every single question is an opportunity, a chance to add another connection to that mental web of knowledge you're building.
I absolutely love this quote from William James. It just perfectly captures the whole idea of smart studying. Look, you can't possibly memorize everything. It's just not possible. Real wisdom, and yeah, exam success too, comes from knowing which core concepts to focus on. Those big ideas that tie all the smaller facts together.
So as we start to wrap up here, just think about the journey we've been on. We went from the tiny little spaces between water molecules all the way to the towering domes of incredible monuments. We've jumped from our body's own immune soldiers to the rich tapestry of culture. We've really started to connect the dots.
And now the real question is for you. With this new way of learning, where you're not just memorizing, but you're actually understanding and connecting, what amazing, new, and more fascinating picture of the world are you